All right, this is our fifth session in the N8N class, and I hope we've learned a lot, we've practiced a lot, and we've also studied a lot. We are only having, I think, 3 more sessions together. Please do well to keep practicing. What we are giving out here is just a tip that we can run with. Don't just finish the class and relax. Please do more practice, engage in more exercises, build systems, and that's how you grow. Also, I would like to remind us, if you are yet to subscribe to the YouTube channel, please do so. And also, if you have missed out on any of the sessions, kindly go to our YouTube page. You'll find all the recordings there. They are there for your consumption. Please do well to check them out. Okay, we've talked a lot, looked at some concept about N8N, and last week uh, we started with what is an AI agent, and we looked at what an agent is. Describe an agent as a system that can think, that has ability to think and decide on its own, a reasoning uh, autonomous system that can plan and execute tasks in order to achieve specific goals. And we give an example of a chatbot, a virtual assistant, or a support system. Those are the example of an agent. We also cover the component of a typical agent. So in order for an agent to function effectively, there are some components that it has. For instance, we talked about the brain, which can be a chat model. Uh, like the likes of ChatGPT, Gemini, Cloud, and all those LLM systems. And we also talk about the memory, that our agent must have a memory. That's how it keeps track of the previous activities. And I remember I cited an example about ChatGPT in that when you interact with that model, it has the ability to remember what you've uh, been. It has the ability to remember the topic line, the context of the discussion so far. So it is because of the memory. And we also talk about some hand tools, which are relevant tools that the model can also make reference to, that it can use. All right. But before we go further into today's class, we're actually going to be continuing from where we stopped. Let me quickly share my screen. Uh, let me quickly share my screen. Please just give me a reaction if you see my screen. All right, my screen is visible. Thank you for that. Just give me a minute. Okay. Now, the idea of what we're trying to build is to implement the basic understanding we had or we learned about a typical um, AI agent. So we're trying to build a small, sort of like a chatbot that people can interact with based on what we do, based on the information that we feed into the system. So for sake of understanding, I feel like I should start again. Uh, but before then, okay, let me just start again, I think. Let me delete this. I'll just delete this from here, delete this from here. So the whole thing still remains the same. This is my Canva, and I need to add a trigger, and the trigger I will be adding. Now, since it is an AI agent we are trying to build into our system, we want to create a typical chatbot. Um, and the way you interact with a chatbot is by typing in a message. So that means our prompt here will be on chat message. That will be our prompt. Now, if you remember, I will just quickly rush on this one because we've already built from this point last week. So it's giving me an option to make my chat publicly available. What it means here is if I should turn on this, it will generate a URL that I can share for people to access my chatbot online. If I don't, I will only be able to access this chatbot within my N8N. All right. Now, this part is pretty simple. The only thing I will focus on for now, we'll leave this posted chat and then we'll leave the authentication part. The authentication is just if you want your user to, be authenticated before using it. We are not going into that right now. So I will only focus on the initial message. Now, what do you want the user to see when they visit your system, the chatbot? Now, an example is given us here. He said, say hi there, my name is so and so, and how can I assist you today? So we can customize this to our own. So let's say, hi, I'm a chatbot. How can I assist you today? Now, you can build this for a business, you can build this for yourself, but whatever you are doing, for instance, let's say you're trying to build it for yourself or for a business. Let's take an example of a business. Maybe you cook, or maybe let's just work on that. I don't know. Maybe you cook, or you bake, or you are into some sort of services or another. So you can just introduce yourself. Maybe, hi, I am. Let's say we have a business. Uh, let's say we are into cooking. Let's say we are into cooking, for instance. I would say, let's say our organization, the Femininvotech, is into cooking. We'll just say hi, and Fembot, the Fembot, or let's leave it at chatbot. How can I assist you today? So that's what we need to do on our chat. You can test it if you want to, and you see it giving you an option to enter a chat here. So if I say hi, I can easily, you know, the chat message was received. If you go back to, you can see from here that you received the message. I need to bring this up. Yes, you see it has assigned a session ID to that chat there. So, and you can see the chat input here says hi. So it's working. So whenever a message enters, the workflow will start. And what should happen? Let's add our agent here. Let's add our agent, AI agent there. Now this part is a little bit tricky. Now I told you that the very first time you are launching an AI agent, the N8N gives us uh, 100 credits, free credit to use the agent. And the moment you enter, you will see an option that allows you to claim the the free credit. We did that last week, so that's why I'm not having the option anymore again. Okay, so from here it says source from 4 point. So it's chat trigger. That's what we need. So if you also okay, so I'll select the system message. Why is this not given? All right. So under the system message, now before my time is short, I need to explain something here before I go further. If we can't finish today's class, continue in the next, it's important that I share this. Before you know how to build an agent, especially when you are trying to impute your system messages, you must know how to prompt your AI properly. So this is why I'm digressing a little bit so that you won't be confused on what I'm doing. Now let me open another browser here. Let's see. Let me just explain, but I think I can just share. See if it comes up fine. If it doesn't, okay. Okay, let me just explain because my time is short. All right. In order for you to get the in order for you to utilize AI system or to prompt your AI very well, there are a few components that your prompt must possess before you can use AI properly. Now I'm taking this slow. Let me close here and let me just, I will need this space. For instance, let's take ChatGPT for instance. People just use ChatGPT like a normal Google. Now, ChatGPT is not like Google. It's an intelligent chat model that, when prompted properly, gives you your desired output. So there are components that your prompt must have before you can get your desired result. And this is why I'm digressing because we will need it. Now, the first part that your prompt must have is a role. You must give your chat, your AI, a role to play. So instead of just asking your question, now when you just ask ChatGPT, for instance, a question, it just gives you uh, somewhat like a, a confused response. Too many information embedded, and in the end, your prompt, the result of your prompt will not be valuable, will not be effective, and at times might not be relevant to what you are looking for. So in order to utilize the power of AI, of those chat models, you must specify what role the AI should play. That's number one. After you must have specified the role. Now, what I mean by role is, who should your AI play as or act as? Now, for instance, you can tell it to maybe play a role of um, a teacher, a professor, or a cook. You can say something like act as a professional cook. So with this, AI will not be answering me like a regular chat. It will be answering me as a professional cook because I've assigned it a role. I can say act as a mathematics teacher. I can say act as a software engineer. I can say act as a whatever thing you want to search. You must give it a role. I can say act as a dentist if what I'm searching has to do with dentition. I can say act as a lab scientist, and not necessarily to say act. I can also change and say you are an expert uh, expert uh, dentist. Thing is hard for me to write. Okay, you get it, Jack. So you specify the role. Now, another thing that must be included in your prompt is you must specify the task. What did you want the AI to do? So, and what I mean by task is the action. I'm taking it slow because I don't just want to jump into building. Uh, if you can't build it today, we'll build it in our next class. But just make sure you catch this. The task, like I mean the action. The AI has not gotten the role he is to play. Now, what task should he do? You are saying what action should he perform? And this action are simply action words. And when we say action words, the English student knows what that means. They are verbs. Verbs. They are action. So what are those verbs? Like an example, you can say, let me put it here. Example of an action word that we can use. We can say create. Create is an action, is a task that we can give. We can say write. Write. Um, okay. We can also say maybe build. These are action. You can also say design. I'm taking it slow because I want us to get it. Can also say generate. Generate. Okay. So we've given it a role, and now we have specified the task. That is the action you want it to perform. So if he's a cook, you can also, I think another one just dropped. You can say prepare. These are actions. So you must give it a action. You can also say maybe in terms of when you are writing some things, you can say summarize. You can say summarize. So just think about action. You can also say explain. Yeah, explain. You can say explain. So when you specify the role, then you specify the action. And you can see the action is as simple as a word. So this will tell what action you should play based on the role. I'll see how we can demonstrate that. I was trying to open my chat the other time. If not responding, hopefully it comes up. Another thing, this one. Oh shit. I don't move this up. How can I do that? Okay, I think I will. So another thing you can give is context. Context. You must specify your context. And what do we mean by context? Context is like a background information that will allow the AI to understand your situation, what you are trying to do. For instance, you can say, you can describe yourself. And when I say you should describe yourself, or let me not say describe yourself, because some people can be very funny. Describe the situation, describe what you're trying to achieve. For instance, you can say, uh, I want to prepare, uh, what example can I give now? You describe the situation. You can say, I want to prepare a Facebook post for so and so business. So you just give it a context. Let it have an idea of what you are trying to do. So that's what we mean by context. So maybe we'll try a typical example and see how we can combine all this together to have a streamlined and more effective output from our model. So another thing you can give is what I call, or what is called, constraint. Is constraint. Now, constraint is simply you telling the AI your expectations. You are giving it a tone. How should this speak? Even in the human world, in our physical world, when certain people speak, you hear people say you don't know how to talk. You don't know how to talk to elders. You don't know how to relate. You don't know. It's the same thing in the world of AI. So it also models that intelligence. So you have to give it a tone. You give it a tone, the tone you want it to use, and you can specify the length, the length of what you want. Now, when I mean tone, I think let me also iterate that. You can say uh, the tone you should speak as if he's talking to professionals, or if he's talking to like um uh kids, he's talking to kids, um or maybe you can say you should use maybe like a casual tone, or maybe you should use a persuasive tone. Persuasive, this one is useful for people in marketing. Persuasive, if you're trying to write something persuasive, so you tell it to stay within that constraint of persuasive tone. You get what I mean? So another thing that your prompt must consist of. Let me try to create more space here. I think I'll just leave it that way. I don't know. Okay, hopefully this space will be enough. Okay, another thing that's worth of note is you must specify your output format, your output, your output format. How do you want it to respond back to you? An example of a format you can use, uh, you can say the output should be in paragraph. You can say uh, bullet form, should be bullet or bullet points, anyhow you want to call it. And you can also say it should be in maybe step by step, step by step, step by step. Okay, let me add one more. I think it's optional actually, but if you feel like using it or depending on the context, this one may not be uh, usable in every context, but it's also important for you to know that you can use it. Is you can give an example. You can give an example. Can give an example. So let's say you have an example of what you want, and you want the chat to model its response based on that or in that fashion. So you can give it an example of that, and it will try to give you a response that looks like that or in that pattern. So that's what we mean. So let me just reiterate again. Before you get a proper response from your chat, it could be Gemini, it could be DeepSeek, it could be ChatGPT, any of those elements. Now note, those elements also have a way of prompting them, but what I'm giving you here will still work regardless of what element we are using. All right. So let's take an example. Let's say we are okay. Let me delete all this. So let's first of all, what are we trying to search? Please, can someone just give me a problem so that we'll not overthink? Just give me a problem. Let's try to solve it. So we see how we can combine all this together. If you have a question in mind that you think we can use as an example, just unmute yourself and let's hear it. So let's work with that. Okay, let me just give an example from my end. Let's say I am a student. I don't want to go too complex. Let's say I am a student and I want to make uh, a post on maybe social media, my class social media, or let me say, okay, let's take our first example. Let's say we are a cook, the firm Innovatech. We are into cooking. That's what we do. And we want to write maybe a social media message for students, maybe for primary school students now. And this is what we want to do. So first of all, to do that, we'll give our AI a role. We'll set up the role. And in this case, we will tell it to act as a cook. Okay, I just remember something now. We're giving it a role. Now in this context of being a cook, when I say you should act as a cook, I am also not specific what type of cook. Is he a Nigerian cook? Is he an European cook? Is he an Italian cook? Is he a French cook? Now, it now becomes so vague, it's not specific. So let's say I want to stay within an African context or maybe a Nigerian context. I can say something like you are an, oh, let me open my notepad here. Let me use notepad. Uh, that's too many information tonight. Let me quickly share my notepad. Let me just share my notepad screen here. Or let me share my notepad. All right. So the first thing, I will assign a role. All right, sorry for that break. I was going to share my notepad screen. Please let me know if my screen is visible. All right, I think my screen is visible. So first, you must give it a role. And from our example, we are different. And we're going to write uh, let's say a social post, a social post for, let's say, maybe primary, or let's say maybe like high school students, high school students. That's what we want to do. So we'll assign a role. The role is we want you to act as a cook. But remember, I was saying if the cook should be an European cook or an Italian cook or a Chinese cook, but we want to stay within our context, an African cook or maybe a Nigerian cook, let's say, so we define the role. Say you are an expert cook that know how to prepare Nigerian dishes. Only. Let's stay with that. I'm trying to tell it not to go out of this context. And let me also add an, an, um, give a step by step procedure on how to prepare Nigerian meal. So this line describes the role of my agent. This is the role I want the child to play. Now the next thing is I want to specify the tax. Now remember, I want to write a social media post. So the task I want to give it is that it should write a Facebook. It could be Facebook, it could be Instagram. Talking about social now. Let's say Facebook. Write a Facebook post. Okay. So this is what we want you to do. Write a Facebook post that's uh, introduce 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 the firm as a cook, a professional cook. We're just taking an example here, please. Now, number three is I also want to give it a context. I want to give it a context. Now, let's say we want to describe what we are doing. Okay, let's see. Okay, break this. Say a trend is into uh, teaching of all sorts of Nigeria traditional is into teaching of all sorts of traditional meals for students or for schools, for high school students, for high school students. Okay, I just gave it my context. This is context. This is context, and that's it. My task. That is my task. The fourth thing we can add here is we can set a constraint. One of the constraints we can add here is the length of what we want. I can say I want to give it a length. I want to give it a length. I can say the length should be maybe let's say 300 words. And use a now for high school students, the tone will not be that professional. It should be more like a casual tone. So I'll just say use a casual, a casual tone. As simple as that. Then maybe I can also specify the formats. Now, input. This is output format. This is output format. And lastly, I'll just say maybe constraint. This is our output format. Then we say, I say, what? Let's say maybe paragraph. Let's say maybe two paragraph. Yeah, if you want bullet point, you can also specify bullet point. So I'll combine this into a single prompt. Then we'll pull that into our LLM, large language model. I will say you're an expert cook that knows how to prepare Nigerian dishes. Nigerian dishes only, and can give a step-by-step procedure on how to prepare Nigerian meals. Okay, so that's all about the role. Then I'll say write. What's going on? So I'll say write a Facebook post introduce to the pen as a cook. That's all about that. So we want to give it a context. And say it's into cooking of all sorts of Nigerian traditional meals for high school students. And then we want to set the constraints and tone. And lastly, I'll put maybe formats into 2 paragraphs. So that's how we are setting up. I'll put this up into my model. I'll put this, let me quickly share a screen that has audio. Let me quickly share a screen that has that. All right, I'll share my screen right now. Hopefully we can see my screen. Let me share my entire window. Going back and forth. Okay, so all I will just do, this is my prompt here. Then by now, this is a more structured one. Now note that the key point of this is to, the key action here is to write a Facebook post. To introduce let me make it more specific. Okay. Okay, and get there to patronize business. So this is what we want to do. So I'll pull this up into my ChatGPT and let's see what ChatGPT gives. All right. Now you'll see the tone, the language, the vibe that it gives is a more structured vibe. Now, for instance, if you read this first option, he said, "Hi everyone, meet this and this, your go-to plug for deletion." Now you see, it's using a casual tone because I specified that it should not use a professional tone, but rather a casual tone that is befitting for students. So if I'm dealing with professional, I will have to change the tone to a more professional tone. Now, if I'm trying to appeal, so I will use a persuasive tone. Okay. So if you see the second paragraph here, so it's all about making sure that students hit well without stress. So you see the English is a, yes. So This is how you properly give an effective prompt to your AI model. And having understood this, in our next class, all right, okay, I just saw something now. Look at the second option. It's saying a delicious homestyle Nigerian meal made especially for high school students. If you ever miss that meal, Mama's Kitchen. You see, it's now using the normal casual street language, all because I specify a casual tone. All right, so this is where we'll call it up. In next week, we'll build our first chart model. And with this understanding, you will get to know how everything comes together. Don't forget, if you have a question, please do well to engage the chat. The recording for this session will be posted on our YouTube page. Do well to rewatch it. If you have questions, engage the chat, and your questions will be attended to. See you in our next class.